Baseball fans know, or at least should know, the story of the founding of the Negro National League at the Paseo YMCA in Kansas City on February 13, 1920. The organization of the league was led by Rube Foster, owner and manager of the Chicago American Giants, who was joined by a coalition of other team owners. The league was the first African American baseball circuit to achieve stability and last for more than one season. But there's a story of another black baseball league that most fans don't know. That's the story of the Southern League of Colored Baseballists, the first attempt at organizing a league of black ball clubs back in 1886. That league, my fellow minor league nerds, is the subject of this episode of Minor League Nerds Special Episodes. The late 19th century saw baseball, spelled as two words back then, emerging as the national pastime. The sport was only a few decades old and was growing from a leisurely gentleman's game played by Civil War soldiers and upper-crust socialites into a rough-and-tumble cutthroat money-making enterprise and professional industry, with the National League being formed 10 years after the end of the Civil War. In 1867, the National Association of Baseball Players, which was the first organized governing body of the game that was formed in 1857, decreed that clubs which may be composed of one or more colored persons should not be permitted to compete with its teams of gentlemen amateurs. When the National Association of Professional Baseball Players, the first professional baseball organization, was formed in 1871, it did not have a written rule barring black players, but it was generally understood that they were not welcome. This was the background which led to the formation of the Southern League of Colored Baseballists. In March 1886, an ad ran in several Southern newspapers that read, "A call has been issued for the captains of all colored baseball clubs of Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, Alabama, and Tennessee that have a fair record and desire to enter the Southern League of Colored Baseballists to send name and address to the manager of the Southern League of Colored Baseballists, Lockbox 298, Jacksonville, Florida." The league was headed by T.T. Hardin and had 12 members of its board of directors who were said to have a capital of nearly $100,000, which is more than $27 million today. Any club that wanted to join had to pay a fee of $5 to cover the cost of advertising, postage, and telegraph costs, as well as obtain a subscription to the Southern Leader, a black newspaper based in Jacksonville, Florida, for a $1 fee. The paper was to be the official newspaper of the league. On May 22nd, a convention was held in Jacksonville, seeing 22 delegates attend. Hardin read a prepared report about the league and made recommendations that were adopted. It was also decided to hold a series of exhibition games 2 days later in St. Augustine. The teams that were scheduled to play in those games included the Daisy Cutters, the Clippers, the Macedonians, the Tallapoosa's, and the Greenleafs. Opening day for the league was originally scheduled for May 10th, but it did not take place until June 7th, with the season to end on August 25th. The league did not draw up a schedule, leaving it to the teams to take care of themselves, with June 1st being the deadline to have them completed. No comprehensive league schedule is known to exist today, though some newspapers did publish the schedule of their local 9. The umpires for league games had to be acceptable to both teams. Quoting from a league circular that was published on April 8th, no cooked and tried umpire will be considered favorable by the league. Host teams were also required to have a guarantee for each visiting team that was enough to cover board, lodging, and transportation. Clubs could be suspended for repeated disorderly conduct, cursing, fighting, and drunkenness. At the time, Jacksonville was a small town of 7,650 residents, but according to Northern Illinois University professor James Brunson, one of the country's leading authorities on 19th century black baseball, it made sense that it served as the home of the league instead of a larger city like Atlanta, Nashville, or Charleston, as Jacksonville, he said in an interview with Jacksonville Magazine back in 2016, was a blackball town. The region served as a resort town for wealthy Northerners who wintered at the hotels in the area where African American employees would serve as waiters and then don spikes to play ball games for those same patrons. At the same time, Jacksonville also served as the home base for several touring black teams, the most prominent being the Athletics, who barnstormed all across the Southeast. They also faced the same bigotry that blocked the growth of black baseball in the country. They were once scheduled to face a white team in New Orleans called the Brennans, but that team canceled the game once they found out the Athletics were a black ball club, despite the fact that the winner of the game was to receive $200. Before the league began, it received press in the South, with word reaching as far as Cleveland and Rochester, New York. But after the season began, the Memphis Appeal Avalanche and the New Orleans Times-Picayune were the only papers that really gave it any coverage, with them focusing mostly on their local teams. According to modern sources, the first game took place on June 7th with the Georgia champions of Atlanta defeating the Eclipse of Memphis 11-10. But according to the Atlanta Journal in 1886, the game actually took place on June 9th. The only players known to have played in the game was Memphis's battery, which consisted of a pitcher named Pointer and a catcher named Wood. The game on June 16th in New Orleans between the Unions of New Orleans and the Eclipse of Memphis is the best documented league game, which was covered by the New Orleans Times-Picayune. It was originally scheduled for June 14th, but was rained out. The Eclipse won the game 3-1, scoring all their runs in the first inning. Left fielder Newman and second baseman Joyner each reached first on what would be considered a drop third strike today. They scored due to errors and pass balls by Union's catcher Johnson. There was no reporting on how the third run scored. After the first inning, Johnson and his pitcher Arnold settled down doing splendid work, as the newspaper reported. The Eclipse were said to have fielded well and threw the ball like professionals. The best play of the game was made by the Union's second baseman Recasner. With a man on first, he stopped a hot ball near second, scrambled to the bag in time to get the runner, and threw to first to secure a double play. The Union's lone run came in the sixth when Recasner hit a single. He then stole second and reached third on a hit by Johnson, and then scored on a pass ball. The game took an hour and 45 minutes to play. Each team committed 4 errors, with the Eclipse stranding 2 and the Union stranding 5. The Eclipse catcher Hardin had 3 pass balls, with Johnson having 4. The Eclipse pitcher Renfro had 13 strikeouts, no wild pitches, throwing 30 strikes and 64 balls. The Union's pitcher Arnold had 7 strikeouts, no wild pitches, threw 58 balls and 28 strikes. The two teams met again the following day, with the Eclipse winning once again 11-7. There was no recap of the game like the one played on the 16th, but a box score was published by the Times-Picayune. After the two clubs finished their series, the Eclipse were issued a challenge from the Cohens, another black team in New Orleans, who were looking, quoting here, to settle the question of supremacy and show that there was more than one first-class colored club in New Orleans. The challenge was accepted, with the Cohens winning the 6-inning contest 7-2. Their pitcher Price only allowed 2 hits. Thanks to a box score published by the Times-Picayune, we know that the game took an hour and 15 minutes and had 400 in attendance. Membership in the league fluctuated widely, with teams coming and going almost weekly. On April 26th, 13 cities were said to have been represented in the league, with that number increasing to 15 a month later and then dropping to 11 come opening day. Today, it is widely accepted that there were 10 members of the league. They were the Eclipse of Memphis, the Georgia Champions of Atlanta, the Broads of Savannah, the Eurekas of Memphis, the Lafayettes of Savannah, the Fultons of Charleston, the Unions of New Orleans, the Athletics, the Florida Clippers, and the Macedonias of Jacksonville. Later in the season, it was mentioned that teams in Montgomery and another Jacksonville team played in the league. Of the games that were scheduled, it is known that only a handful actually took place as the league vanished into history. Even T.T. Harden's fate is unknown. If the archives of the Southern Leader were still to exist and could be found, we would hopefully learn a lot more about the league, but we suspect they are long gone. At the end of August, the Memphis Appeal Avalanche referred to the Eclipse and the Eureka Clubs of Memphis as the champion colored clubs of the South, but there is no evidence that the league lasted long enough for a champion to be crowned. Jacksonville remained a vibrant hub of black baseball well into the 20th century, reaching its peak in the late 1930s and early 1940s when the famed Jacksonville Redcaps joined the Negro American League. Well, my fellow minor league nerds, that'll do it for this episode. We do hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel or the podcast platform of your choice to be informed whenever a new episode is released. And until next time, stay safe and remember to never stop supporting minor league baseball and never stop learning about minor league baseball history.
This podcast is part of the Curved Brim Media Network. Here are some of the other members of Curved Brim Media.
Hi, this is Ed Rivera of the Data Chronicles. Join me as I interview people just like you and players, coaches, GMs on the path that led you to become a fan of the sport.
I'm Paul Caputo, and on the Baseball by Design podcast, I talk to minor league baseball teams, designers, and other super interesting people about what these minor league baseball logos mean, and I talk a little bit about ice cream helmets.
What's up, Bucketheads? I'm Anna DiTommaso, and each week on the Baseball Bucket List podcast, I speak with a different fan about their favorite baseball memories, what the game means to them, and what's left to check off on their baseball bucket list.
Hey everyone, it's Eric from the great state of Kansas.
This is Johnny from the New Orleans Baby Cakes Memorial Museum.
And we are the Earn Fun Average podcast,
where we talk to a variety of guests about their love of baseball and have fun doing it.
America, lower your standards.
Average is what we do best.
This is Patrick and Corey of BaseballMapper.com, and we have made an interactive map to help highlight all baseball teams from the majors down to collegiate summer leagues.
We want to bring you closer to baseball, so get on the site and find a team near you today.
Hey guys, this is Patrick Larson from the Minor League Baseball Hat History Series, and in every episode I go through the history of minor league teams through my personal collection of hats. You can find me on Twitter at @PatLarson1. I hope you guys enjoy.
Learn more about Curved Brim Media at curvedbrimmedia.com.